So I'm Gayatri, and I lead the A.T. Chandra Foundation. And I have with me Nimesh Sumati. Nimesh Bhai is, as he's commonly and lovingly known, is a fellow philanthropist and has been partners with us from the beginning of our journey, and his journey has been even longer in the space. I also have Amrita. She leads our sustainable rural development vertical, and Kanika, who works with her on the same team. We will be happy to answer any questions at any point. It doesn't have to be super formal. What we're going to do is just share with you our experience of working in water. Some of you we've known longer, some of you we're meeting for the first time, and we have made a tremendous progress in the last 1 year, which we want to share. One of the principles of our work and our foundation and our partners is that whatever we do is open source. We can't be everywhere, but we would like the work to scale without us having to scale ourselves. So that's really why we thought we'll share with you. We will show you a short video in between, but before that, I'll give you a slide background. Can you move to the next slide? Oh, it's here. Sorry. I can move to the next slide. Oh. For those of you who worked in water, these statistics are things you'd know by heart. But I thought I'll just tell you why we started working in this space. If you think back to the early part of 2013, 14, what we kept reading in the newspapers every day were farmers committing suicide in Maharashtra. Living in Maharashtra, it became a bit absurd for us not to be able to do something about it as fellow citizens. At that point, while thinking of what solutions can be offered, we could have done a million things, but what we wanted to do was something that was sustainable, something that was scalable, and which could happen even if we didn't exist at some point. And that's when I think Amit and Nimesh Bhai met. We saw that Nimesh Bhai, and he can talk to you more about it, but was doing rejuvenation of water bodies in Akola and realized that this solution is actually very low cost. It requires, of course, philanthropic funding, but with partners, it could actually scale up. What the model actually does is, and I can go to the next slide. Yeah, so it's a community-led movement. What we start off with is understanding where do these water bodies lie, especially really dried up water bodies that have collected silt over many, many years. We understand from the community their interest in reviving these water bodies, their interest in the silt that will be taken out of the water bodies. So we assess what is the demand for the silt. The silt is extremely nutritious. So if you put it as a farmer on your field, then your need for fertilizers, etc., comes down. And the silt is obviously given to them for free. So we first understand, is there demand for this silt? We then work by getting machines into these water bodies, actually just physically taking off, the machines physically take out the silt, and you see a line of tractor trolleys of farmers collecting that silt to put on their farms. You can see in the picture there. What this does by the farmers coming and collecting the silt on their own is it reduces the overall cost massively. So then what philanthropists or government is paying for is just the actual work of digging out the silt. And then once it rains, these water bodies are filled out. Now all of this has to happen before the monsoons, when the water bodies are dry. Please feel free to jump in. And benefits are galore, right? For the government, because the farmers are collecting the silt, the actual cost of desilting comes down, government or philanthropists. Also, their subsidies will have impact. The amount of fertilizer that a person puts on their field is then coming down because the silt is so fertile. It increases water storage, obviously. What it does is if these are recharge water bodies, it also increases storage underground. And for the community, several of them are able to take a second crop, a third crop, because now their fields, sometimes even completely barren fields, are turned fertile because they've put the silt on it. Their consumption of fertilizer goes down, their yield goes up, their interest in farming increases, so they don't have to then migrate to the cities during non-agricultural periods. So over the years, we started this in Maharashtra, 2016. along with, at some point, the government got interested in this work as well. And what the government did was said that as philanthropists, you put in, or CSRs, you put in the money for the machine. Government said, we'll provide the diesel, and the farmers are anyway doing it at their cost. So it became like a tri-party relationship of sorts. What we were able to do was about 3,800 water bodies. 2,700 of these were done with the government, rest were done independently. And about 80 lakh villages were impacted and created surface water of about 4,000 crore liters. Yeah? I'll just leave those numbers there for a second. Thank you. Last year, we thought, let's do some more. So in the 2 years of COVID, the work was severely impacted. If you remember, this work can only be done in the summer. Both years, that's when the peak lockdowns were. So we managed to do in the first year 10 water bodies. We said, okay, let's try a different state. So we started working in Rajasthan, did 10 water bodies in Rajasthan. Then 21, we said, let's look at Karnataka as well. A few in Karnataka, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, we were able to do about 150 water bodies. Last year, we did close to 900, close to 1,000 water bodies, actually. Of these, some with the government, actually at the central government level with Niti Aayog, and rest we did with fellow philanthropists and CSRs. So 565 we did on our own, and 351 we did with Niti Aayog. Now what Niti Aayog said is, can you do this in aspirational districts? And obviously it was a little daunting for us. We never worked in these districts. We never worked in these states. And we didn't have partners there. But we said, look, this model is only going to work if it is scalable anywhere, right, or replicable anywhere. So we said, you know what, you tell us where to work. We'll figure out partners. I remember writing an email to Nimesh by saying, where do we get partners in MP and UP? Do you have contacts? And of course, he delivered. We found some excellent partners in these districts. What we were not sure of is whether farmer demand would be there. In Rajasthan, for example, the silt is not always nutritious. There can be places where it's extremely sandy. But there we found, talking to the local GPs there, that they still want the silt because they can use it for construction. So we said, okay, this model still works. You just have to, make certain changes on the ground to make it work. So the model continues. Communities are mobilized by our NGO partners on the ground. The government, in this case, Niti Aayog, paid for the actual desilting, and this time they paid for both the machine and the diesel. So there was no philanthropy. What our role became then was funding the NGO partners to do the demand mobilization and overall project management to make sure that it's actually happening. For the NGOs to go and talk to collectors, it's harder, so we were there doing that. We will show you a short video of the work we did with Niti. Can you play the video, please? It's 5 minutes, so it's not too long.
भाई पानी यहाँ नहाने तक का, पीने का मतलब ये रहा, और ये 20 साल के पहले पानी नहीं रहा था। हाँ, ये बिल्कुल क्लियर है, बताओ। और ये पानी परमात्मा की देन, ये तालाब से पता नहीं कैसे कुआं में पानी धीरे धीरे बढ़ना शुरू होगा। मतलब ये यही के कारण हमारे पानी का देन जो है तो केवल तालाब का है, ये तो हम कहेंगे।
Can you imagine that it's not one place you're seeing this? You're now seeing this in hundreds of thousands of water bodies, where by January there's no water. And this is not this particular farmer, this is across the rain-fed regions of our country. If they could have had water, maybe they could take a second crop or a third crop. But there's nothing, right? They are borrowing money to buy tankers so that they can drink water at home.
Traditionally, there have been these concerns for water. So we actually realized that, the major challenge was to retain water in these few lakes.
That's when, through research, we came across this particular project.
टैंक जैसे वर्क होते हैं, ये कम्युनिटी लेड कार्य होते हैं। ये इंडिविजुअली कोई इसको नहीं संभाल सकता है। तालाब एक बहुत बड़ी चीज़ होती है, वो पूरे गांव की परिसंपत्ति होती है। तो उसमें अमूमन ये होना चाहिए कि उसमें पूरे गांव का मालिकाना हक होना चाहिए, पूरे गांव की सहभागिता होनी चाहिए, तब जाकर के वो कम्युनिटी लेड कहलाएगा।
एक ग्राम पंचायत का, एक गांव का जब भी विकास हो पाएगा जब गांव के लोग उसमें पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे। मैं तो बोलता हूँ उसमें महिलाएं पार्टिसिपेट करें, गांव के बड़े बुजुर्ग पार्टिसिपेट करें, और उसको जो ऑर्गेनाइज करवाने की जिम्मेदारी वहाँ के वार्ड पंच, वहाँ के सरपंच लें।
इस प्रोजेक्ट में हमें दो तरीके के लाभ हुए। एक तो हमें वाटर कंजर्वेशन में लाभ हुआ, और एक हमें जो किसानों के लिए जो सिल्ट है उससे उनकी जो भूमि की उत्पादकता है, उपयोगिता है, वो और बढ़ जाती है। तो दोनों तरीके से जो हमें एक ही काम से दो तरीके के एक बहुत बढ़िया लाभ मिले।
जैसे कि पहले जो बंजर ज़मीन थी वो सर मुल्तानी मिट्टी टाइप में होती है, वो पर सर फसल नहीं होती थी, ठीक है। वो डलवाने के बाद में थोड़ा मतलब 50% फ़र्क है अभी तक।
अब तालाब वो जैसे जैसे खुदाई होती है ना, तो वो गहरा होता ज़्यादा है ना, वो पानी इकट्ठा रह जाता है इसके अंदर, निकालने के बाद में भी रह जाता है पानी।
पीने के हिसाब से देखें, जैसे पिछले साल लोगों से बात किया तो लोगों ने बताया कि भाई जो कुओं का पानी पीते थे उसमें हल्का सा नमक का टेस्ट आता था, पर ये जब से तालाब का काम हुआ है उसके बाद कुओं में जो अभी पानी पीते हैं, जो हमने भी टेस्ट किया है, तो उसके अंदर एक तो कड़वाहट कम है और नमक तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं है। तो ये फ़र्क भी देखने को मिला है।
जैसे कि हम देखते हैं कि एग्रीकल्चर में भी जो खेती का बहुत काम है, जो हमारी लेबर रहती है वो महिलाएं रहती हैं। तो इस प्रोजेक्ट से जो पानी की दिक्कतें उनको आती थी, जो उनको बहुत दूर दराज रास्तों से गुज़र कर उनको बहुत दूर जाकर लेकर आना पड़ता था, और वो इस तरह की सारी समस्याएं जो हैं वो सुलझ गई हैं, और उनको अपने गांव में ही जो है ये जो रिसोर्सेज हैं वो उपलब्ध हो रहे हैं, जिससे उनकी समस्याएं बहुत हद तक जो है सॉल्व हो चुकी हैं।
जैसे ऐसी की ऐसी नहर हर डैमों में आ जाती है ना, तो सबको लाभ मिल जाता है।
Thanks. So for us, like I said, the starting point was farmers. We will only do this work if it's going to benefit farmers. So we said, let's understand what do the cost economics work, how does it work for them. And these are some of the farmers we worked with in the early days, and we were able to see big increase in their net income because their costs of fertilizers was going down. And despite having to pay, cart their tractors for collecting the silt, it still made sense economically for them. What we were able to also, Dan? We found even our NGO partners on the ground were so enthused by this entire process and being able to see the benefits to the community. This is Mr. Peparamji, one of our partners in Rajasthan, one of the most inspiring men you can ever meet. He initially started off saying I'll do 20 water bodies in the areas we're working. That very quickly became 53. But not only did he manage to do 53 water bodies, he also got community to contribute to the desilting. So we actually paid less than half the cost, and a lot of the money he was able to raise from within the community because they found it so beneficial, even though this silt was not fertile. So we found we were quite impressed by him, and we hope to continue working with him in the future. What we've also found in the last year, working closely with Niti Aayog and the advisors there, is that there is government money to do this work. So it's not like CSRs or philanthropists have to put in all the money. There are schemes, both the 15th Finance Commission schemes, but also RRR scheme under PM KSY, which allows for villages and panchayats and also states to take on this work. We've now got interest from Niti Aayog after doing these 6 districts. They've said we want to do another 25 districts, including 2 from this, so 23 districts. Madhya Pradesh government wants to us to work in their state. Maharashtra government has shown interest, saying, we were doing this earlier, can we revive it now? COVID is over, we want to restart this process. And all of them are paying for the desilting. What we as CSRs, philanthropists needs to do is really just look at what is the NGO cost on the ground. We've also been able to tie up with more experts in the field. So we now have an app which not only collects data, but another one which tells you which water body to do desilting in, because the groundwater recharge will be better there. So in a village which has 2 water bodies, you can choose which one is more likely to have sustainable impact. And all of this is now open source, so anyone can use. So 2 lakh water bodies to be done, and we think there's enough money to do that in the next 3 years. What we would like is for more people to take this up. Like I said, everything is for sharing. We've created videos, small size videos of each process and how to do that from the NGO's point of view, from the farmer's point of view, so that this can be scaled up. Like the app, again, is available to all. What we need is more like minds to come together. We can share the list of districts that we know of right now that the government is interested in. If any of these fall within your scope, or you want to say, ATCF, don't do it, we'll do this, or you want to do it in another district, the country is our ocean, as they say. And again, like, we're extremely open. We are a small foundation. This is just individuals who put in their money. So it's really about scaling this work without having to scale ourselves. This team is 4 people. Yeah. So these are the states: Jharkhand, Maharashtra, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, UP. We have the list of districts Kanika can share with you that governments have said they want work done in. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'll keep that on. But I'm just going to ask you to think about questions you might have. I know we ran through this because we wanted to be more about thoughts or questions that you might have, and any and all of us can answer. If you want to hear the Maharashtra experience, Nimish Bhai is the brain and soul behind it. He can also explain. You want to? Yes. Please says yes.
So this desilting or regeneration of water bodies is not something that we have innovated. It has been going on traditionally since many years, but it was forgotten for a certain period of decades because of the ownership of the water bodies, which changed. The ownership of the water bodies is a deterrent, because if anybody wants to remove silt from a water body, they need to have a permission from the appropriate authorities. So the community, in spite of having the inclination to desilt, they were not able to do it. So then it depleted. And many of these water bodies have not been desilted from more than 40 years, 30, 40 years. And some of them have got silt up to 70%. So instead of going in for bigger dams, more dams, it is better to just revive the old dams. Because traditionally, the old dams were strategically made where the catchment area was good and the storage capacity was very good and the percolation was high. So there are percolation tanks, there are storage tanks, and there are dams. Dams, by the definition, government's definition is different. They call it MI tanks and dams. But we, for general, we call it water bodies. So I will just give an example. Manjra, which is near Bid district, it gives water to 3 districts: Osmanabad, Bid, and Latur. That itself is 42 square kilometers. And the silt is minimum 60 feet in height. And that is just at the periphery. So when we reach the center of the dam, it will be much higher. So that is the scope for desilting. And in Maharashtra, Marathwada region only, not Maharashtra, there were about 1,200 water tankers going around before the work on water started. Of course, the credit goes to many others who worked on water: Pani Foundation, NAM Foundation, Jal Yug Shivar. But today there are less than 27 tankers functioning in Marathwada. So the water woes of thousands of villages has been taken care of. So this technique, it is not a substitute for other watershed work that we do. This is supplementary to that. We are supplementing the other watershed activities which are being done, which needs actually expertise. This doesn't need any expertise. Any NGO which has not worked on water also can do it. We just need farmers' mobilization. That's all. The other watershed activities, like they do deep CCT, CCT, LBS, gully plugs, deepening, widening, that needs expertise, engineers, civil engineers, and that needs capital. This is one of the rare schemes where 75% of the cost is borne by the community. 25% is just the excavation cost. 75% of the cost is carting, which the farmers are doing at their own cost. And these are the same farmers whose loans have been waived by the government. They are used to subsidies. The electricity bill has been waived, and they are paying for carting. And we have not spent a single rupee on awareness or advertising in all the states that we worked. NGOs on the ground is admin. That is not awareness or capital. So this is a very popular place where the farmers knows the value of the silt that they are cutting. So we'll be happy to take on any questions.
Ramesh bhai just reminded me from what he was saying. So if you think of a water body of about 1 hectare that you would excavate 10,000 cubic meters, that creates 1 crore liters of storage capacity. The cost of doing this is about 3 lakhs of the actual digging. 30 rupees per cubic meter at today's diesel cost. So it's very economical, and one water body typically is about 1.5 villages. So very, very low cost, and now even less cost for the donors, because we are only paying the NGO's cost for creating that momentum on the ground. Yeah, questions?
I mean, there are various kinds of water body depending on the location. So are these a kind of a water bodies, like you said, dams or large, let's say, reservoirs, or these are tanks when we look at Deccan and below? And these are all common properties, right? These are not private land. And how, I mean, once you desilt, how long does it take to get the silt back? Because that's been our contention as to what happens in few years, and yeah, that's largely my question. So,
Okay. So we actually are doing a research study on water bodies we did in 15-16, and they all still exist and they're still functioning. We are also comparing it to water bodies that we didn't desilt and looking at how the community is taking ownership of it and all of that. To answer your question, Dhruvi, on what are these water bodies, it could be any of the ones you mentioned. We don't look at rivers at all. We look at land-bound water bodies. So they could be ponds, they could be, and in different states they call them different things. So talabs, ponds, what have you. There was one more question that you had asked. Resilting. The other thing we're doing now is, in the water bodies where we've worked, we are doing plantations around it, we're doing bunding around it. So, and all of these are again covered by government schemes. So there's no donor money going into it, but that then keeps the water body as is for a much longer period of time.
The rate of siltation won't be as fast as it was in the past because there is hardly any forest left around it. Most of the mountains are all bald. You know, the runoff, whatever was to happen has happened. But it will change from region to region. There is no one rate which we can say. There will be different in different places. But yes, the resiltation can happen. But as I told you, we found that there are many NGOs who are working on the other aspects of watershed. So this is supplementary to their work.
And the whole
So even we are working on Rich to Valley, but that has given us limitations to work. Each village is costing us around 30 lakh, one village, to make it tanker free if I do Rich to Valley. And if I do one water body of 10,000 cubic meters, it's costing us 3 lakhs. So this 3,800 water bodies which you see is less than 6 years. And from last 6 years, Rich to Valley, we have done less than 100 villages. So that is the rate at which we can move. So it's like working in the casualty ward, the ICU, the general ward, and then the OPD. So we are working in the casualty ward in the drought regions.
No, so we don't use Manrega. What we're using is the 15 Finance Commission. So the way it works is Gram Panchayats in their plans can ask saying, I want to do these water bodies. What we got clarified from the ministry is, when we can share this with all of you, is a statement saying that 15 Finance Commission funds can be used for rejuvenation of water bodies. So there are tied funds which are only for water. Within that, you can use it for this. So that's one. The other is a PMKSY, which is under the Jal Shakti Ministry. Any water body that's above 2 acres in rural parts of India can be funded by a 60-40 combination of central and state.
I think it's a wonderful base work that has been done by A.T. Chandra Foundation. I am from Apraava Energy. I have already marked 2 districts.
Okay, great.
One is in MP and one is in Rajasthan. Great. So we would like to do for long term, 3 to 5 years.
Perfect.
And is there any feasibility study that we need to do, kind of say average rainfall in the area or something like that?
We have all of that. We can share with you. So
it's already available.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've mapped across the country all the rainfall areas, what the rainfall is, what the departure from regular rainfall is. We have all of that data we can
So
share.
we'll be in touch for these 2 districts.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. I'm Nivedita from CAF India, and we'd be very keen to be part of this. I'll just have to go back and talk with my team, and then we'll get back to you very soon, next week.
And if we're in Delhi, we can meet in person
Yeah,
as well.
I'm anyway looking forward to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we are already there in some of these areas.
Okay.
A lot of it is Rich to Valley.
Yeah.
Plus. And we've been talking about
Yeah.
this. And how does this
Sorry,
get
he wants you to use the mic so it's recorded.
How does this get integrated with our ongoing projects? And what mechanics can that be?
So what happens is that
They can't capture on the mic.
So what happens is that typically when you go into a community and you're doing a watershed mapping and then you do a water budget and then there's a water security plan that's created, if they are following also mapping the aquifers, figuring out the hydrogeology of the region and all of that, typically they will also, one of the basic things they will tell you is that there is either an existing water source that is present in a recharge area that needs desilting. It will be part of those WSPs actually in many of the places where we've seen WSPs being made, right, by Aquadam and organizations like that. So one way to do it would be to prioritize those water bodies and to desilt those because we already know it's part of the larger plan because we're also making CCTs and so the siltation rate will be lower. So that is one way to integrate. The second way to integrate would be to look at where are you all present, what is the larger canvas, right? And to say what kind of watershed work and livelihood work is happening. And then because the farmer is carting the silt back, right, how do we then help this farmer move to natural farming techniques so that the input cost reduces over time and all of that? Huh. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah.
What general plans you have on those
Yeah,
areas,
so-
see if there's an overlap and we can take
Yeah.
this further.
Yeah,
Yeah.
typically it integrates. So, because we've been speaking to a few NGOs like Pradhan.
He
And,
actually just left.
Okay. Yeah,
So they
so
was, yeah.
this is the conversation we are having now because
No, so we're
Yeah.
talking to them to work in Bihar,
Bihar
and
and
Jharkhand.
Jharkhand. So the idea is
He's
that
aware,
it
I
should
spoke to him
integrate.
yesterday.
Because if this 30 lakhs is well spent on making these plans, this 3 lakhs is small money to make sure some parts of those plan happen. So
I think where the challenge comes is the mechanics. I think that's where the so there is certain mechanics to the rich to valley approach.
Correct.
And this is a different mechanics. So I think that's where the transition needs to happen. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I mean, see, Ridge to Valley is required to be done.
Yeah.
Very only for one village.
Yeah.
But even after Ridge to Valley, that doesn't ensure a double crop output.
Takes a while unless then we do.
There is a rise of 10-20%, you know. But this silt which is applied, farmers have put it on barren land. So the cultivable land has gone up.
So how do you decide which farmer gets to take the silt?
Yeah, that's a good question. What we try to do is we try to make it equitable. Our NGOs say that first phase we get 1 acre per farmer, and then there is second phase where the second acre can be put. We try to do that.
Everybody gets 1 acre and then
Yeah, because we want to cater to the small and marginal farmers first.
because the affordability to pick up is
Yeah,
there
yeah.
with the large farmer. And
But
they will
the
also
major
have
part,
more say locally than what the small marginal will have.
yeah, major part is taken by the bigger farmers also. But they are the ones who can do the scale of this project. So the water storage capacity is enhanced so much that the small farmer also get the benefit.
So one of the things, just to add to that, the reason we work with strong NGOs who have that community connect is this. Otherwise, it will be the rich farmers who, take all the silt. Working with the NGO ensures a more equitable thing. When we spoke with Jal Shakti,
Table is more important.
correct.
And at a level, the large farmer is also not doing too well on
Yeah. So when we spoke to Jal Shakti ministry, they said what we were able to do in the last 3 years under the scheme, you guys have done in 1 year. So we want to work with you and your partners, because then we know the silt is not being used for or sold or any corrupt practices happening on the ground. So she said, you tell us who your partners are, which districts they want to work in, we'll work with them. Yes.
Hi, I'm Saket. I'm from KPMG. We are supporting the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs on the Amrut 2.0, which has the rejuvenation of water bodies component. As on date, there are around 1,500 water bodies rejuvenation projects that have been approved, around 3,000 crores. So, this information that I wanted to ask you was if you guys are working in the urban areas, which I understand no. But my question is, many of these water bodies that you have rejuvenated, was there a case or was there a situation where these water bodies were being was there a water outlet of the village, drains, etc., and yes, sewerage. So did your projects also cover that component? Because if it includes that cost, then the cost
And
might
it
go
goes
up.
So we
right?
don't typically choose water bodies which are being used for waste or for dumping or for sewage. Yeah, and it doesn't happen as much in rural as it does urban. It's a big problem.
Yes.
So we're looking at learning and doing a pilot in Noida, so we can understand the space more. But as of now, I would say we don't know enough to do work there.
Okay. Okay.
How easy or difficult is it to convince the farmers to participate?
Actually, it's not difficult. This traditional knowledge they have, they know that the silt is useful. They've never had access to it. Through Manrega, there are water bodies that are done and the silt is used, but that's such a slow process because it's manual, and also it's in peak summer, right? So it's like 48 degrees and you're expecting people to carry silt, a mud on the head. This is a much faster process. If you work double shift, you can do a water body in 2 weeks' time, a small water body. Yeah, or we pull the collectors in if there's maramari. Yeah, and now with government has their empaneled vendors, so we don't have to even get involved in that. So it becomes even easier.
And what are your biggest bottlenecks for growth?
Signing an MOU with the government. So, I mean, that's a process that requires us to go many, many times. Also, when you're working, what we realized last year working with collectors, initially their hesitation is that we've just come, we'll tell them what to do, given them targets, and we'll push off from there. So convincing them that we are very keen on this impact happening, that took some time. Once they were convinced, it was rapid. But required us as a team to visit them. What we're planning to do for the next year as part of our plan is to actually have a fellow in every district who can work with the collector. They're so busy to then give time for this also becomes like a headache for them. We want to make it easier for them. That way we can do many more water bodies.
Do you need the government permission to start?
Yes, yes. I mean, government's paying for it, so they have to be on board.
But if a private sector were to do it completely by themselves, would you
No, so we've always taken, we've always taken government permission, got it legitimized, even if they were not paying for it. You don't want them coming and saying, who asked you to do this work? Yeah. And we only do commons, right? We don't do private, so it has to be okayed by them.
This can be applied in any country, right? So
Yeah.
in that sense,
Yeah.
Very eco-friendly. The SDG goal, whatever you say, the carbon footprints, everything is very, very good.
and the data anyway you're picking up from satellites, so it doesn't matter.
Yes,
Yeah.
now we have the technology there.
Yeah.
You can identify, as that we said, you can prioritize the water bodies which you want to use first. So we can be more surgical in our approach.
Africa, this could be huge.
Yeah. Definitely. And open source means open source for any country. We're not, we're happy to share. Sure. Sure. Yeah, no, I can give you we can give you our cards, we can connect, yeah. It's a common platform, so it just has to be customized to your needs. Because this is very much for silt and farmers, so not as applicable for urban, but it can be customized. Yeah. Thank you.
First exercise in Ministry of Jal Shakti started in 2019, first season. Jal Shakti Minister announced it for the rural, and this rejuvenation water bodies was first of all announced only for rural.
Yes.
And then the urban ministry borrowed it, and then they said, why only rural, let's also do it.
Correct.
And then later on it was integrated with the
Amrut 2.0, yeah, yeah.
There is a big priority in Chennai and Bangalore.
Yes.
Especially to avoid flooding and, yeah.
Urban requires
And both, yeah.
Urban requires a much more top-down element because there are a lot of encroachment issues.
But even rural also, because they encroach because it's so fertile.
Disputes you may be encountering in your
Yeah.
land disputes.
So in some of the districts, I mean the more rural ones, like in more heartland India, yes. But the minute it's government ka kaam, they don't really, it's quite easy to solve.
There's an effort going on in the US to rejuvenate lakes.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, no, a foundation which is doing it because of water problems in the US.
Oh.
Yeah, massive issue.
Which we are experts at. Great. So happy to connect. I have spoken to all of you individually also, but happy to connect offline.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.